The new Orbea Wild is even wilder than before. Orbea's crew of engineers, given a fistful of freedom, have had their way with it, boosting travel and making the geometry even more aggressive. This is Orbea's flagship full-power enduro electric mountain bike. The outgoing Wild has 160mm of rear-wheel travel combined with a 170mm travel fork, but the new model gets 10mm more travel out back and a few more changes to boot. It's got slacker geometry aimed at making the Wild suitable for even more aggressive descending. Totally new race-bred suspension kinematics now offer 170mm of travel front and rear, but also change the way the shock is actuated, aimed at making it suitable for racing and extreme terrain. Our expert tester Luke was out on the launch. It was wet and wild indeed, and was his chance to get to know the bike before it was released to the public. Before we drive into the new Wild frame and look at the new motor and battery, a big shout out to Orbea for sponsoring this video. We saw pro rider Martin Mays riding the Wild out and about during 2024, but incredibly it wasn't at Enduro World Cup venues where we saw this bike. It was at Fort William, the gnarliest downhill World Cup of the year. But how does the new frame compare to the old one? Orbea says the new frame has been optimised for stiffness in EMTB applications. They say the new Wild is 10% stiffer than an equivalent non-assisted bike to cope with the added forces generated by the weight of the battery and motor. When pedalling, the new Wild is said to still exhibit similar levels of anti-squat in the suspension kinematics to the outgoing model. Orbea clearly think that if it ain't broke, why fix it? This anti-squat controls how a bike's suspension reacts to pedaling forces. Also, to help the bike's climbability, the shock has a climb switch to firm up the damping for the rear end on smooth or steeply ascending sections of trail. Orbea have refined their concentric boost 2-pivot suspension system to cope with that extra travel. It uses a single pivot linkage-driven shock, while the split pivot on the rear axle deals with braking forces. Watching Martin Mays ripping up courses on the Wild with a dual crown fork and a mullet wheel setup sure was impressive. Of course, the OO Lab team had to remove the motor and battery to stay within the rules of downhill racing, but now let's take a closer look at what was missing from his bike. First up, the motor. The Wild now uses the updated Bosch Performance Line CX drive unit. Offers the same torque, power and assistance percentage as the Performance CX motor on the old model, but is lighter and quieter than the outgoing motor, and has some pretty cool new features. First up, it has a more compact display and shows increased sensor data, including an accelerometer that measures in 6 dimensions, plus tilt and inclinometers. It also has a new hill start assist using the inclinometer for improved walk mode, which changes speed according to your walking speed. Bosch says the Performance Line CX is 100 grams lighter than the old Performance CX unit and will be quieter too. But what powers this motor? Let's look at the battery. There are a number of battery options for the new Wild. A new, slightly smaller capacity Bosch 600 Wh battery is now available. This will make the bike lighter but reduce the range compared to the larger 750 Wh battery on the outgoing Wild. This is just one option though. If you're a fan of longer days in the saddle, then don't fear. A 750 Watt battery is still available. And if you tend to ride all day smashing the turbo mode, then you can add the optional 250 Wh range extender, opening up the combined capacity to 1 kWh. The battery is attached to the frame using Orbea's SBS or Secure Battery System, which they promise is stiff, light and reliable. It also uses custom battery hardware in order to tune the placement of the battery in the bike, for Orbea to optimise the bike's weight distribution. Orbea say the new Wild is one of the lightest truly full power e-bikes at under 21 kilos and that they have not compromised anything to reach the weight. Let's examine the geometry, then take a look at the spec options. Orbea says the new Wild has EMTB optimised geometry, as it's longer and slacker than ever with a low standover height and a long, straight seat tube. The medium bike we have here has a reach of 455mm, a 634mm stack height and a 77.5 degree effective seat tube angle. The head tube angle sees a change to a super low 63.5 degrees. Orbea's pro racers helped to develop the geometry and said the change gives the bikes even more confidence at speed. And if you're comparing other bikes to this one, the chain stays a 448mm long, and that's the same throughout all the sizes. We mentioned the effective seat tube angle earlier, which is steep in order to help perch the rider over the bottom bracket. This helps to create an efficient pedal stroke and helps reduce looping out when climbing steep EMTB specific climbs. A final thing to note on this is that it's got a shorter, straighter seat tube to accommodate long travel dropper posts. There's up to 210mm of dropper insertion on the small and medium size and a whopping 240mm on the large and XL. Speaking of droppers, let's look at the spec of this bike. The flagship Wild is a top-spec carbon fibre framed M Limited, which comes with Fox factory suspension, namely a Fox 38 fork and a Float X2 shock. Maxxis double down rear tyres and Exo Plus front tyres are equipped with options to choose a tougher DH casing via Orbea's Myo online configurator. There are two Aqua wheel options. The MC32 Limited carbon wheel gives the lightest ride for smoother riders, or the new MC32 Team wheel uses an updated rim designed to stand up to DH World Cup runs and is suitable for the most aggressive riders. Orbea says that this all-singing, all-dancing build can come in at under 21 kilos. If this is outside your price range though, there are 8 models to suit different budgets and riding styles. But first, let's have a look at some customizable options to build a Wild which suits your riding. Orbea has introduced a mullet option, in case you prefer a smaller rear wheel for handling and packaging reasons. Whether you want maximum speed with a 29-inch wheel or to focus on fun with a 27.5-inch is up to you. 2 shock linkages allow you to change the rear wheel size without affecting the geometry. The option of a 27.5-inch rear wheel in combination with a low seat tube height should give the rider lots of space to move over the bike. I did mention that there are 8 models to choose from, which is too many to talk through in this video, but I picked out a few that you should know about. If you want to know more, then head to the link in the description. Before we look at the range though, there is a new Wild ST version which is more trail focused. It has less travel and is also cheaper. Let's take a quick look. The new Wild ST is a little sibling to the big travel Wild. It only comes in aluminium and has some wallet-friendly components on there. Geometry is tamed down for more intuitive handling and the travel is reduced to a less extreme 150mm of travel front and rear, or 6 inches there or thereabouts if you're watching from across the pond. The Wild ST's more trail-orientated package still includes the same award-winning frame design, the same new Bosch Performance CX motor and the same choice of 600 Wh or 750 Wh batteries. The differences are that the Wild ST is only available in Orbea's high-polish aluminium. This aluminium alloy frame has polished welds to remove stress points, but it doesn't hurt that it looks super sleek. In tandem with the trail-focused geometry, the Wild ST uses 29-inch wheels only front and rear. If you want a mullet, you'll need the full travel Wild. So how much does all this tech cost? The M Limited comes in at £10,999 or $11,999, but if that's out of your price range, then you could consider the M Team, which uses the same carbon frame as the M Limited, but with a more budget-conscious spec. This means it retails for £8,499 or $9,499. The M20 still uses the same carbon frame as the top spec M Limited, but retails for around £2,000 or $2,000 less than the M Team. The H20 model is aluminium, and whilst it still features the same motor and battery technology as the rest of the range, it costs £5,799 or $6,499. And finally, the more budget-conscious Wild ST with the lowest H30 spec is £4,799 or $5,399. That's the new Orbea Wild, but if you want to know more, then head to the links in the description. If you got this far, I reckon you want to watch our e-bike motor test right here.